Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is the 6th day of Teach Maths, and I am super excited because today we're going to infant school because we're going to be learning about building strong educational foundations. Building strong educational foundations. And our guest for this evening is early years learning herself on Instagram. Please Anuoluwapo, Micheal, Ayeni. She's going to start talking in a bit. I want to read out a profile to us all. Anuoluwapo Micheal Ayeni is a dedicated early childhood educator and consultant with a passion for nurturing young minds. As the current head of school at Mini Treasures Preparatory School, she brings over 10 years of experience in practical classroom teaching and educational leadership. An advocate for early year phonics, Anuoluwapo actively supports teachers and children struggling with reading and spelling, aiming to bring out the star in every child. With a background in English language education, inclusion, elocution, and jolly phonics, Anuoluwapo is not only an experienced educator, but also a passionate advocate for creating a positive learning environment. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone watching right now, please can you celebrate with me Anuoluwapo Micheal Ayeni as she joins us this evening. Yay! Welcome! So good to have you. So good to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. We're glad to have you as well. So we've been running 12 days of Tigmas and we've had 5 extraordinary days. And I'm positive that today we're taking it up a notch higher because we keep getting better and better each day. Thank you so much. Wow, love is plenty. I can feel love myself. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the love and for the warm welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So some people may not know you because they probably did not attend Tales from the Classroom when you came to Cloud. So please, can you just share one fun fact about yourself with us?
Fun fact. Okay, I'm an early years educator, so one fun fact about me would be that I love to play. Yeah, I love to play. I love to play as much as the children do. Yeah. So I enjoy games, fun activities, all kinds of things that you think children would love. I love them. So I love to watch cartoon. Yeah, all of those things.
That is so good to know. So today we're talking about those people that you love so much, the children in the early years. Oh, somebody said,
Nice.
and it was explosive. Yes, it was explosive.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about building strong educational foundations today. And for me, I feel that this is very important for everyone out there. In fact, just some minutes before we got started, I was harassing my sister. I told her that you must join now because we were talking about children. And
yes, and everyone needs to learn.
I'm a believer, and the Bible says that if the foundation be destroyed,
What can I just do?
So, because the foundation, and then I'm also a basic technology teacher. And in basic technology, I tell my students that the foundation of a building is critical to the success of that building construction. So your building looks beautiful, but the foundation is faulty. The building itself is faulty because it's going to
Like
come
crash.
down. Yes. So welcome, and I'm excited that we're discussing this topic this evening. Like I said, teachers will find it useful, and parents as well who have little children at home will find a need for this topic. So let's get started. I would like you to start by describing what a child in infant school is like, and what exactly is this foundational educational background that we're talking about.
All right. So thank you very much. So I will start with the typical child, like your children. What are they like? They want to play. They are children who just want to play, who just want to explore. They don't understand what it is that you've even brought them to life to do. They don't understand that children just want to have fun. Children just want to be children. And what do children want? They want to play. They want to spend time doing fun things. If you leave a child to watch TV all day, they would practically sit there and watch TV all day because to them, that is fun. If you leave a child to say, oh, if children ask for things, oh, I want chocolate, I want snacks, I want biscuits. Well, if you give it all to them, they would have it all. So children are like, they're just like open. They're just like free. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. Now, it is left for the adult, who can be the parent, who can be the teacher, to guide them. So children depend on adults to be whoever they grow up to be. Now, when we talk about education, education simply means imparting knowledge. It simply means learning. It simply means gaining new skills, acquiring new skills, basically. So as adults, we find ourselves having to acquire new skills because we know that it is beneficial to us. So if I decide now to say, okay, I want to take a master's degree, I want to take a PhD, I want to sign up for a course, it is not because I want to actually, because if I'm given that choice, or if someone says now, okay, choose between taking a course or going to Bahamas, all expense paid. You know
Bahamas.
that's what you choose. You know that's what you would choose. You're already like, my brain is tired. I need to go on holiday. I just want to go and have fun. So that is the same way children are. So you will take up a course. If you decide to go for the course, you will take it up because you know how beneficial it will be to you in the future. Maybe because you consider the fact that if I take this course, I'll probably be able to get a job with Google or get a job with Microsoft and get an official car and be paid in dollars. You're already looking at the benefits that will be attached to whatever course you want to do. Now, for children, they don't see the benefits. They don't know the benefits. But you, as the adult, you're the one who knows that if I guide you right, this is what you will turn out to be. This is the kind of adult you will grow out to be. And if I let you have your way and do the things that you want to do, you are also likely to end up this other way. So you have the choice of, okay, guiding them right or letting them always have their way. So educational foundation is basically supporting children, like laying quality foundation for them, giving them appropriate support to ensure that they are working towards the goals or the kind of life that we see for them. So basically, education should be acquiring skills, imparting knowledge in a way that the children will learn in variety of ways. Because the thing is, we don't know how a child will turn out to be in the future. So we are making different opportunities available to them. Say, okay, let's do music, let's do sports, let's do ballet, let's do taekwondo. We're giving them all of these opportunities so that at the end of the day, we lay quality foundation for them to develop that, to become that holistic child, to have that holistic development. And in the future, they can now make that choice for themselves based on their own, like their own interests now. Then they can now gear towards their own interests. But left to children now, let me use my daughter for example. I have a 5-year-old. And in the past year, she has decided to be different things. We have days when she comes and says, oh, when I grow up, I want to become a ballerina. And we have days when she comes to say, when I grow up, I want to become a doctor. And then there are days when she comes to say, when I grow up, I want to become a dancer. There was a day she said, when she grows up, she wants to be a builder. So she wants to be all kinds of things. Children wants to do different things at the same time without having any particular goal or any particular vision in mind. Now it is left to us to provide her with different opportunities. Okay, when you have to learn music, you learn music. When it's time to learn dance, you learn dance. When it's time to do mathematics, you do mathematics. When it's time to do ensuring that she has those series of opportunities. And as she grows older, she can now make a choice because she has acquired different skills that would help her to thrive in that chosen field of hers. So educational foundation simply is giving children appropriate support to enable them develop in all areas while they grow up to now, as they grow up and then now be able to choose their own choice, their own career path.
Oh, fantastic. So, from the conversation so far, what I understand is that number one, the children's mind are not exactly, it's not like their minds are blank, but you can, it's whatever input you put in per se that you will get out of them. If you just allow them to just have their way, tell them, oh, it's okay, just give them, hand them a tablet and just say, watch they
They'll
will
make their own
learn.
choices, weird choices.
Yes. But then if you are deliberate about exposing them to certain things, you are also going to see the results. You are going to empower them to be able to make better informed choices as adults. Okay, now I know fantastic. I know that parents usually have these stellar ideas about who their children should be. What, everybody has this vision. My child will be able to play ballet. When my child sees every adult, my child is going to say, good morning, ma. Good morning, sir. My child will say thank you when handed things. And my child will be the most polite child in the world. My child is going to be a textbook child that every parent will want to have. But then the challenge sometimes is parents are wondering, how do I speak to this child? For instance, I was once interacting with a parent, and she was telling me, oh, my son would not want to do his homework. That I think she said, I'm not sure, but I think she said she ended up doing his homework for him that day. I said, why? When is his homework? She now said she promised him that if you do your homework, you're going to get, or oh, I was saying, try reinforcement. Tell him you do your homework, you get this, you don't do it, you don't get this. And then she was like, if he starts with me, he will not do the homework, and I will still give him what he asks for. So, what tips, what strategies can parents actually use? Because yes, we want to build strong foundations, but how can we go about it?
I think, like I said at the beginning, now you are the one who molds the child into what you want them to be because you understand what is right and what is wrong. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean making choices for them. It doesn't necessarily mean me deciding that my child is going to be a ballerina and that's the only thing I want to do. No, you're going to give them various opportunities. You're going to ensure that they learn the needed skills. So like you mentioned, courtesy, they need to greet, they need to learn to read because that's an extension, that's a life skill basically. They need to understand mathematics, they need to know how to be problem solvers. So you need to equip them with all those skills and you know that will be useful for them in life. Now, your child's homework is one of those things that they need to do to learn because of course they need to learn and they are learning in school, they're giving them tasks to do at home as a way of reinforcing what they have done in school. So if your child does not do his or her homework, he is not able to reinforce or she is not able to reinforce what has been learned in school. So if you end up doing that homework for the child, you're not helping the child. You're not helping. One of the things I always say to parents in my school is, if your child comes home with a task that they are not able to do on their own, please send it back to the teacher. Now, it's a different thing for your child to know what he needs to do and not want to do it. And it's a different thing for your child to not know what he needs to do. So if your child doesn't know, he doesn't understand it, then you need to send it back. The teacher needs to read, to teach, to reteach, to ensure that every child understands what they need to do. If your child understands what he or she needs to do and doesn't want to do it, maybe because he thinks that there's something else that he would rather be doing, maybe like playing football or watching on the iPad or watching the TV. Now, it's left to you as a parent to help your child to prioritize. Now, this is not what you need to do now. This is what you need to do. So one of the things I would say is set routines. This is our routine, and you need to stick to it. Now, it's understandable that once in a while you might want to be flexible so that it doesn't seem like you're kind of like a rigid parent and the parents cannot have, so you can always come up with negotiations. As the children grow older, I believe in negotiation because you allow them to express themselves and make demands. So if you come back from school and you have a routine of when you come back from school, you take a shower, you have your lunch, and next is your homework, and then you take a nap. If that is the routine that has been set. So you come back from school today, you take a shower, you have your lunch. Now the next thing is homework. And then the child is saying, Mommy, I don't want to do my homework yet. Can I watch TV? Now it's okay once in a while to say, okay, you watch TV for 5 minutes and then we come to do your homework. But that shouldn't be a norm, because you need to help your child to understand that we need to put first things first. So there is this habit I love to teach children. I love to teach children the 7 habits of happy kids. So the 7 habits of happy kids, or 7 habits of effective people, which talks about be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first. So basically, that's one of the things I love to teach children. So as I teach them that, I let them know that, okay, you have to be proactive, you have to be responsible for your things. And then we're talking about begin with the end in mind. Let's set goals. What do you want to achieve by the end of the term? Where do you see yourself? Now, even with my 4-year-olds, I always tell them, you will get a certificate at the end of the session. However, if you don't put in the work, you will not get the certificate. As small as it is, it's not chocolate, it's not iPad, it's just a certificate. They want to get it, even if it's just a reward, a star on the star chart. If you do not do this, you will not get this. So they understand consequences. As small as they are, they understand it. You will not get to have a playtime. When your friends are going out on the playground, if you do not do your work, you won't get a turn on the playground. So we already have the routine set. Now it's time for homework. Mommy, can I watch TV? No, we need to do your homework first because we need to put first things first. And if the child is still saying, oh, I don't want to do it, I'm tired, I will be throwing tantrums, it's okay to have those conversations with them. This is what you need to do now. However, if you decide to go and play now, I am not going to let you play because you also need to be firm. I'm not going to let you play. You're going to sit out here. So you're going to not play. You're going to not do your homework. And at the end of the day, we can just get started, get done, and go and play. So you need to let them know that this is the routine. This is what we stick to. And there are consequences. So if you don't do the homework, you don't get to watch TV eventually because you still need to do it first. So like I said earlier, sometimes you can decide to be flexible. Okay, today watch TV 5 minutes and we come back to your homework. 5 minutes is 5 minutes. One thing I always say to teachers and parents is, if you give the children the rules and you're not consistent with it, they're just going to take it for granted. If you tell them this is the consequence, if you don't do your homework, you're not going to have chocolates, and they don't do the homework, and you still go ahead to give that chocolate, they're going to do it again. Because they've seen that it's not working. Mommy or daddy or uncle or auntie, they don't mean it. So if I tell my learners in class, If you don't finish your work in 10 minutes, you don't go out to play. I stick to it. You don't go out to play. So we have like timers. In my classroom, I use timers. So I put a timer on the screen and I make sure that it has an alarm at the end. So we set the timer. Lunchtime, everybody, we have 30 minutes to eat. So once we set the timer, the moment the timer goes off, everybody can hear it. You see one child who's done eating telling the other child, oh no, you're not going out to play today, because they know that that is the consequence. That is what Mrs. Ayeni said. That is what is going to happen. I'm not going to change my mind because you didn't finish. Now, if peradventure I decide to be nice, Mrs. Ayeni, because once in a while you don't want to be that teacher who's like mean, and because you know that maybe the child is still learning to eat fast. Now, you keep the child back. I keep the child back for 5-10 minutes. We're having conversations. Okay, you didn't finish your food today. What are we going to do next time? Okay, so you like try to eat faster. You make sure you focus on your food, no distraction. So I let the child understand that you're not going out while everybody has gone out because of this. And next time, what will you do so that you can join them? Now, after having that conversation, that's like a time to now say, okay, next time, what will you do? Okay, what do you want me to sign into the next time? Should I feed you? Should I give you 5 more minutes? And once we have that conversation, you can now go out to play. But at the end of the day, if playtime is 30 minutes, you're not having the full 30 minutes anymore. So you had like 10 minutes or 15 minutes taken out of it. So you have a shorter time to play. So they understand that there is a consequence. So one thing I would say to the parent is set a routine. Oh, some people are not being allowed in. Set a routine. Ensure that you know that this is what we need to do. So the child knows that this is what I need to do now so that I'm focusing on that. And then once it's time to move on, we've moved on. There's a consequence. You don't get chocolate. You need to do your homework. And if you don't do it, you will still stay back to do it. But eventually the child is tired. You also need to understand the mood so they're not just forcing. So if the child is tired, you need to understand, okay, the child is tired. So you can talk about, do you want to take a break? Can we continue in 30 minutes? One second now, first. Well, it shouldn't be that they want to play, because if they are tired, of course, they should be tired to play as well. So it's not like, oh, I'm tired, I want to play, I don't want to do my homework. No, that's not being tired. That's just wanting something else at this time. So first thing first, let's follow the routine. And this is the consequence if you don't do it. So you don't do your homework, no chocolate.
Wow, fantastic. Good evening. In case you're just joining us, this is the day 6 of 12 days of teachers, and our guest for this evening is Anuoluwapo Micheal Ayeni. She is the founder of Early Years Learning, an educational platform that offers trainings and consultations through the Instagram page. She shares knowledge with fellow educators, contributing to the growth and development of the educational community. So you can connect with Anuoluwapo on LinkedIn. She also has a channel on YouTube where you can connect with her to stay updated on educational insights and experiences, just like she's sharing with us. Anuoluwapo, I love the direction that our conversation is taking this evening, because when many people saw the building educational foundations, they probably thought that we're only going to be talking about math, English, science, even like I like the fact that we're stepping beyond the cognitive level of development and we're going into the affective level as well. Children should know how to act right. They should understand that the 7 habits of highly effective people. I love the fact that you have managed to bring that down even to infant school level. So no adult has an excuse. If you're an adult here and you don't know or live by, well, to a large extent, the 7 habits of highly effective people, please go and read that book, or go and just get a summary of the book, because even children can learn those principles.
Yes.
And I love the strategies you're sharing with us, because I believe that parents, teachers also have to understand that these young ones are people. They may be small, but they are people. We can talk to them, we can reason with them. And
Hear us.
exactly, and children these days are open to negotiating. Like, you will be amazed at how a little child will be negotiating, and you're like, this generation, take it easy on us, right? So please, I would like you to share more strategies with us, because I know that they are peculiar. These children are different, they are distinct, they are unique. That age grade, there's a different manner of approach towards educating them. And I like the fact that you're not just focusing on English and math, but yes, please go into that as well. So what other approaches
Okay.
can we take when we're educating them to ensure that they have strong foundations? And okay, I'll come back to it. I was about to bombard you with 2 questions. I didn't write this other one down, but I want to say it just in case there's someone before I forget, basically. Now, parents, when they have children in infant school, especially some that take their children to certain schools, they are usually particular about, oh, my child should be able to write 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000. My child cannot say A to Z yet. When children are in infant school, what should parents look out for? Because I understand the concern. I want to be sure that the foundation being offered my child is strong. So what should they look out for to know that, okay, my child is getting the education they deserve? I hope you got
All
my
right.
question.
Yes, I did get it. And this is an important part of the foundation we're talking about here. So a lot of times I see that parents, schools, school leaders, teachers, and all of that, they are looking out for children being able to write 1 to 200. They are looking out for children being able to read, children being able to write A to Z, write sentences, all the Cambridge and everything. That's the only thing that they focus on. Now, as important as it is, there are some other aspects that are key to your child's development at the young stage. So if, for instance, you have a child who attends a school and can write 1 to 100 or 1 to 200, but this child cannot express himself. This child does not know how to regulate his behavior, doesn't behave appropriately, basically, always throwing tantrums. This child cannot maybe even run or jump, all of those things like that. Now, the thing is, you have not developed a total child. So we see teachers, we see parents focusing on what the child knows. They're not looking at the other skills that are life skills that are important for your child's development. So one good thing is I'm an EYFS educator, and in EYFS we have 2 major areas. We call one the prime area, and we call one the specific area. Now, one thing I always say is, even if you're not an EYFS educator, you see those areas of learning in the prime areas, they are areas where every child needs to be properly taught. Every child needs to be properly supported. Every child needs the guidance, needs to be able to achieve the early learning goals. Even if you're a Montessori teacher or you use the Reggio Emilia approach, whatever approach you're using in your early years, your children need, your early learners, when you have babies in the creche, when you have your toddlers, when you have your 1 to 2 year old, your 2 to 3 year old, when the focus should not be on writing at that age, your focus should not be on writing. Your focus should be ensuring that they develop vocabulary. So you're singing rhymes to them. The rhymes are helping them to develop vocabulary. You're telling them stories. You're showing them pictures. So like all the picture reading, which is one thing I'm happy when I see parents of babies and toddlers who are talking about Miss Rachel. I love it. I'm like, great. At that age, they need all of the singing. They need all of the stories that she's talking about, because you don't need to give, what business does a 1-year-old have with holding a pencil? What business does a 1-year-old have with writing A, writing Z? At the end of the day, you end up teaching them the wrong formation because their hands are not even ready for that writing. And so by the time you give them the pencil, you want to hold their hand and say, okay, do it like this. Before you know it, it's looking all wobbly, and they grow up into the age of 3, into the age of 4, and everything is all wobbly. One class I love to teach myself is the 3 to 4-year-old class. And if I have a child coming into my 3 to 4-year-old class who doesn't know how to write, who doesn't know how to identify sounds, I am fine with it. As long as this child can communicate with me, we're good, because that is the stage where I will hand you a pencil and we'll start to talk about, okay, let's make a stroke up, down, let's make a dash from side to side, let's make a curve, and then we start to introduce that. Because the early years of that child's life should be spent developing the prime areas, communication and language, that's vocabulary development. So ensuring that the child can listen, the child can pay attention, the child can speak. Say 1 or 2 words and gradually short sentences. And then you're also looking at developing fine motor skills, gross motor skills. So you're giving them a lot of hands-on resources. You're giving them Play-Doh to knead, to roll, to pat. You're taking them outdoors to jump, to move around. So all of that is developing the muscles in the muscles in their fingers, the ones on their thigh. At that time, that is your focus. You have no business giving them a pencil. They can hold a paintbrush, but what they are doing is just free painting, messy play all around the place. And then you're also looking at by 21, I didn't get that. Is that age 2? Okay, age 2. Well, no. It depends on the class they're in by age 2. One thing is it can be really tricky, but usually your birth to 1 to 2, age 2, they don't even need to. You can focus on fine motor skills. Fine motor skills that will be useful for them, so that at the end of the day, they develop and strengthen their finger muscles. So it's not just about keeping them and reading to them and talking to them, also engage them in hands-on activities. So like I mentioned earlier, using Play-Doh, bottling, lacing, scooping, like pouring from one bowl to another, sorting objects, you can sort beads by colors. So ensuring that they're doing a lot more. Now, at that age too, like someone asked, if you're asking them to, maybe you're introducing them to identifying, that's fine. You can maybe start to introduce them to sound. This is as in sun, this is as in apple, this is number 1, this is number 2. So you can introduce them to identifying, but not particularly writing. So one thing I always say is children are different. So if, for instance, you have a child that before he or she attained that age of 2, he started to show interest in writing, he's able to do a lot of hands-on activities independently, by all means, introduce a child to writing. But that shouldn't be the goal for every child at age 2. So basically the goal is ensuring that you're supporting their total development. You're not just focusing on mathematics. You're not just focusing on literacy. You're also looking at the personal, social, and emotional development. Can this child interact with other children? Can they stay in the same space without fighting and screaming and punching? Can they regulate their emotions? Or when they're angry, they just throw themselves on the floor and try to maybe get hurt or do things that will get them hurt. Scribbling, yes. That's also a way of preparing them. That's also a fine motor skill activities. So it's not like you're asking them to follow a particular pattern. They're just doing it all around the space. So yes, they can scribble at age 2. But the most important thing that you're preparing them for the major writing. But before you hand them that pencil or crayon to scribble, ensure that they've done other hands-on activities. Ensure that you've supported them enough to prepare them. So the fine motor skill activities can also be called pre-writing. So pre-writing is basically before writing. So before I ask you to write, what are you going to do? What activities am I going to set up for you? So I'm going to set up activities that involve using their fingers, using like the 3 major fingers that they would need to hold their pencil. So they are picking up different items. They are dropping them from one place to another. And then they are also moving around, moving the whole lot. So if you're having a classroom for your 1 to 2 year olds or your babies in the baby room, it should be a space that is free for them to do a lot of movement. It should be a space that is safe. Not a place where they can bump into an item that would hurt them. So you ensure that your environment is enabling, ensuring that it's supporting them. So you're supporting that physical development, you're supporting the personal, social, emotional development, and you're supporting their communication and language, which is their ability to listen, pay attention, understand simple instructions, and then also to speak. So starting with words, and then you do a lot of picture reading, storytelling, singing of rhymes. So by the time you have your children being able to do most of these things, then you can now start to transition into, let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about sounds. Let's talk about blending. One thing I always say is, and for expressive children, for children who are able to think on their own, communicate, who are expressive, it's always very easy to teach them to identify sounds because they can make the connections between the sound you're talking about and objects that have that sound. A child who's not familiar with vocabulary, who's not familiar with what different things are called, who doesn't know that a ball is called a ball, or that this is called a pencil, or that this is called a book, when you start to introduce a child to a sound like b, and you're thinking, oh, let's think of words that have the sound b, and you're talking about book, you're talking about bicycle, the child is still trying to think about, okay, book, bicycle. The child is still trying to understand what these things are. But children that can already express themselves, that are like well read to, you've read a lot of stories to them, you do a lot of talking, you have conversations with them, even at that age 2, age 3. You have all of those conversations with them. It's way easier because it can make the link between the objects and the sound you're talking about. And by the time they are talking to you, they can also listen and hear themselves say the sound. You sometimes work with children where you're saying, oh, we're learning about the sound, apple, astronaut. Can you tell me a word with And the child is telling you something like monkey. And the child is all innocent about it because he doesn't even understand it. So it takes a bit of time. At that point, sometimes teachers and parents start to get from it like, can you hear is that what I'm saying? But the truth of the matter is you need to ensure that the child understands what you're talking about. They can hear and listen to the sound on their own. But a child who has a lot of rhymes, singing, a lot of singing of rhymes, a lot of talking, the child can understand, they can associate the sound to the objects that you're talking about. They can even give you objects, and mention objects on their own and say, oh, anchor, it's an anchor. Oh, alligator, it's an alligator. So they can already make those connections on their own. So the most important thing for young children is ensuring that you prepare them ahead for, I always say, the major part of learning, which is what we call, in EYFS, we call it the specific areas. So all of that toddler stage, all of that baby stage is when you're preparing them appropriately. That's like it helps you to have the total child. Your child is not just the math geek who cannot express himself, who's shy, who cannot face a crowd. So by the time you start to introduce them to what is called show and tell, it also helps to build their confidence in standing in front of their friends and talking about their own toys, talking about their own items. But a child whom you've only prepared in mathematics, in literacy, will have all of this knowledge. But when it comes to a social interaction, the child just wants to hide in one spot because he doesn't know how to make friends with other children. When it comes to fine motor skill, the child doesn't even know how to hold a pencil because all he can do is 5 times 5, 2 times 2, 10 times 10. But the writing has not been properly supported and developed. So we need to make sure that children are appropriately supported in all these areas of learning. I hope that answers your question.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I was just thinking to myself that this is balanced diet this evening because we've touched on
Yes,
the
it is.
we've touched on the affective, we touched on the psychomotor as well, and you gave many different strategies for helping children to develop and to strengthen their muscles. Examples, sorting beads, sorting colors, pouring maybe sand between two containers, and a whole lot more. Don't just jump to oh yeah, let's come and write. You have to work on the muscles of their hands first. You also shared something that I really find interesting. We want to help them to also be able to be aware of their environment. Before we come and start teaching you A for apple, do you even know what an apple is? And we will just come. It's when we are teaching you, we are trying to teach you the sound A, we are trying to teach you what an apple is at the same time. So do we even create that awareness of their environment, expose them to things, talk to them about things, have conversations with them, and then give them opportunities to express themselves as well. So we're also working on their confidence, their esteem as they stand in front of their friends and say, this is my favorite toy, it is color green, it is tall, I like it because, thank you so much. I think this is balanced diet. This is balanced diet. So I know that so far we've been having this conversation. We've touched on what parents can do as well as teachers. But I want you to delve deeper and tell us more about the role of different stakeholders in the development of a child. If you want to build a wholesome, did I say build? I don't know. If you want to groom a wholesome child that will be balanced when it comes to knowledge of cognitive ability, when it comes to morals, when it comes to even the
Social
physical,
skills, emotional
want to
development.
build a total child, yes. So who are all these stakeholders and what roles do they play?
I would say when it comes to children, everyone's input is important. Everyone's input is important. Teachers, parents, the school leaders, the school owners, the government, everyone's input is important. Now, one thing I've observed as an educator, and I'm sure that a lot of teachers would also say the same thing. I've observed that most of the time in your classroom, the children that have their parents involved in their learning, you see that they are always at the top of the class. So you always see that there's 3, 4 children who are at the top. You see that for at least 2 or 3 of them, their parents are very much involved in their learning. So I always say that, especially in the early years, parental involvement is key because at that stage they are just being formed. So they come to school and you tell them, okay, when you're walking on the corridor, when you see an adult, you need to say good morning because it is very important for us to greet. Now, the teacher says that, and then the child goes on, for instance, and mommy also says, when you see an adult, it's very important that you greet. The child realizes that what mommy is asking or what daddy is asking is the same thing that the teacher is asking. So it doesn't seem to be too much. But in a situation where child goes to school and teacher says it's important to greet, and mommy says You know, I don't want to talk to these people. I don't want to greet these people. Or the teacher is the one who's saying that. You see, they start clash. The child starts to wonder. Maybe the child starts to see that, oh, my teacher is asking for too much. My mommy said, or the child is telling the mommy that my teacher said. Because we have that as well. When children will go home and will say, my teacher said. So they are a bit confused because am I supposed to do what mommy is saying? Am I supposed to do what that is saying? Well, in a situation where teachers, schools are on the same page, it actually helps to support the child's learning. So one thing I know that a lot of schools do now is whatever they are learning in school, they always communicate it to parents. So I've worked in schools where at the end of the week, you're sending the parents a list of what you've done. Oh, this week we learned about culture. In maths, we learned about numbers. In literacy, we learned about this. Now that is so that you know what we're learning. And when your child is talking about it, you're able to support, say, oh, yes, your teacher said this. Okay, so this is what they want you to do. So it's very important that parents and teachers communicate and collaborate. So when teachers send you feedback as to what your child is learning, it's important to say, okay, how can I support? What can I do? Now, one thing I always say is to a teacher is, now, you're only this child's teacher for a year. They will always have their parents. They will always have their mom and dad. Now, what impact are you going to make in the life of this child that would make the parent and the child remember you in years to come to say, oh, that teacher did a whole lot in my child's life? So are you going to spend that time blaming the parents? Say, oh, they didn't come for PTC. They don't do their homework. This parent is always, are you going to spend that whole 1 year talking about it? Do what you can for that child and do it in a way that when the child leaves, you won't have that regret that I didn't do enough for that child. And that's one thing I always like. As a class teacher, I would always ensure that when this child leaves my class, I don't want to have that regret that I didn't do enough for this child. So I go all out for my learners. If it is PSCD, we're going to get to that PSCD. If it is understanding the word, we're going to get. I'm not going to like say, oh, you can read, you can write, that's the end. No, you can read, you can write, but you're always crying. We're going to work on it. I'm going to do what I can to support you, ensure that you calm down, you understand when you need to sit nicely and write, when you understand when to not throw tantrums. I'm going to make sure that I support. So that's one thing teachers need to do. Support the child, support the children in a way that when they leave your class, you know, like even if they come back to tell you you didn't do enough for that child, you know that you did everything that you could have done for the child. And that's always my own goal anyways. And as a school leader, and that's one thing I always enforce for my teachers, ensuring that, okay, I'm checking, what are you doing with this child now? What are you doing? What's your goal? What's your target for this child? By the end of the session, what do you need this child to have achieved? How are you supporting the child? So teachers need to do all of that. So the teachers' part is very important. They also need to ensure that as they are setting the target, you're communicating with the parents. They're not just going to decide that, oh, this child can write 1 to 10. Now we're going to move on to 1 to 11. Let the parents know. In their end of term report, state it there. During the PTC, give them the feedback. When you have opportunities to meet with them one-on-one, maybe not every day of the week, so that it's not like an everyday you're talking to all parents. Once in a while, you see that child that needs that intervention. Let your school leaders know. Let them communicate with the parents in whatever way that is suitable for your school so that they can carry the parents along appropriately. Oh, we've noticed your child is not doing well in this area. We want to set up intervention for your child in order to further support him or her in this way. Because at the end of the day, you cannot start to make decisions without carrying the parents along. They need to know what you're doing. And then for the parents, I would say parents also need to understand that your child's teacher is not your enemy. Your child's
Please,
teacher is not.
we can't hear you from the back. Can you increase the volume?
Your child's teacher is not your enemy. Your child's teacher is not someone you want to keep fighting with. Now, I understand that sometimes parents can get to that level where they feel like this teacher is not doing enough for my child. This teacher doesn't love my child. Now, it's okay to express how you feel. I would say when you feel like that towards a teacher, don't talk about it. Please, if you have a reason to report a teacher or to talk to them about how you feel they are teaching your child, by all means do that. If you feel you need to call to have a meeting with the school leaders, please go ahead. They would ensure that they do what is right, or at least they are expected to ensure that the teacher and the school leaders also ensure that the teacher does what is right. Now, it is not enough to consider your child's teacher to be an enemy. It is not enough to consider your child's teacher as somebody who doesn't want their progress or someone who's giving your child too much work. The best thing or the best way to work with your child is to first of all work with their teacher. So if I want to support my child and I want to be able to ensure that my child achieves what I want him to achieve by the end of the session, I need to ensure that I'm working with a teacher so that we are on the same page. If I feel like when my daughter was age 4 and she could read fluently, she was reading words with clusters and all of that. But in her school, the goal was for them to read CVC words and sentences. So she was reading CVC words. She was reading 3-letter words. She was reading the cat ran and sat and man. And at home, she was reading more. She was reading sentences with diagrams. She was reading sentences with clusters. So what I did was I called the teacher. Oh, she can already do this. I noticed what you're doing. Do you do differentiation? What can you do? And eventually, when the teacher started saying, oh, this is what the school says, this is what the children have to do, I realized, okay, this is not in the teacher's hands. I also took it up to the school owner. This is what the teacher has said. The school owner was actually the administrator as well. This is what the teacher has said. This is what my child is doing. And I decided to give her more books, or what's it called now, higher level books, like words or books that had maybe a bit of diagram, a bit of clusters. For me, it wasn't like even up to where she could read. So, but I felt like, okay, this is what they have available for her in her class, fine. So what I did, I downloaded a lot of apps. There was Starfall, there was Khan Academy Kids. So what I would do, I would get her to read those stories. I would make a video of her reading it, and then I would send it to the teacher so that the teacher could see her reading it and say, okay, this is Mimi. I have taught her to read this and this and this. She can now read this and this and this. So they knew that, okay, this is what she's reading at home. So it wasn't me walking in isolation and saying, okay, well, this is what they're teaching her in school. This is what I want to teach her. At the end of the day, okay, there's Starfall, starfall.com, and then there's Khan Academy Kids. There's also the Duolingo ABC, Duo ABC, yes, the Duo ABC. She still has a lot of those tags. So I ensure that from time to time, she's reading and I'm making a video, I'm sending it to school so that the teacher knows that, okay, Mimi can now read words with A diagram, story with A diagram. She can now read stories with O diagram. She can now read this and this and this. So all of that, I made sure that I was really Duo ABC. It's Duo ABC. I made sure that I was involved in that and I was keeping the teacher informed. So it is very important that even as a parent, you want to support your child. Maybe you think, oh, the child is still not doing much of what he's meant to be doing. I need to get him a tutor. I need to get her a tutor. Even if you decide to do that, it's important that you let the teachers know. Maybe when you attend PTCs, you can say, oh, okay, I noticed what you've done in school. At home, she's done it. The teacher at home has taught this and that. So it's not a time to say, oh, no, the parent is trying to take my job. The teacher is trying to take my job, or this or this or that. Like, some of those things are not even necessary. You need to understand that. What did I say is teachers need to understand that the parents only want what is best for their child. And they have every right to complain when they feel like you're not giving their child what is best. However, you are the professional. So if you feel like That is not what your child needs to know now, or your child is not ready. There are certain ways you can communicate, educate them, because sometimes they don't know. Sometimes parents are asking for too much. Sometimes they're asking for too much. They're coming to say, my friend's child, a parent once told me, my friend's child in another school can say the 36 states and capital. Why are you not teaching him or her the 36 states and capital? And I said, okay, well, we're not teaching 36 states and capital yet. Maybe as your child goes on to year 2, year 3, and they start to talk about geography or continents or states or countries, they will get to it. But this is not one of our own, this is not one of our own focus. It's not part of our goals for this session or for this term. So, and when we think about it, the child who knows the 36 states and capital, okay, what other information does he know aside from that? Can he identify any of the states on the map? Does he know where their location is? What else can he tell you? What information? So at that point, it's an opportunity for you to educate your parents, to let them know that this might be a good thing, that your child's friend or your neighbor's child knows it, but it's not an important skill that your child cannot do without at this point in time. So the parents, the school leaders as well, yes, the school leaders, they also need to ensure that they are supporting the teachers appropriately by providing required trainings. Like, it's not just enough to recommend trainings, ensure that they take the required trainings, they have the required certifications, ensure that you provide the opportunities for parents to give feedback, ensure that your curriculum is appropriate for the children. And the curriculum is not just focused on academics, it's also focused on their emotional development, their social development. It's also focused on developing other areas of learning. So school leaders also have a major part to play. And one thing I always say, even though I know that in this part of the country, a lot of school leaders, a lot of private schools are taking all the laws into their hands and decide on what they need to do. But we also need to have a government that is checking to ensure that the teachers are appropriately certified. The schools are setting up the right curriculum. There are a lot of, like, in this part of the country that you see there are a lot of mushroom schools, so to say, where I don't even know if there's anybody who checks their curriculum. I don't even know if there's anybody who provides them with amenities or anything of such. Because now I saw a post on LinkedIn one time where someone posted a picture of a school that was like in a dilapidated structure. And this person said, this school, I can't remember the figure exactly, I think it was about 3,000 or 5,000 naira per term. And he says, this school here pays maybe about 3,000 or 5,000 per term, and they have large number of students. And I mean, the building is like pretty old, like abandoned. The structure is all dirty and all kinds of things. And the person says, just about maybe a minute or 2 minute walk from this supposed private school, there is a public school. However, a lot of parents would rather send their children to the private school that is quite old and abandoned and just messy, rather than sending their children to the public school that is free, or I don't know, I think it's free, and has a bit of seats and looks like it's a bit more suitable for learning. I'm sure there's a reason for it. People probably think that my child will not learn anything if I send him or her to a public school, so I will send the child to a low-cost private school. So we need to have a government that is also ensuring that our public schools have the right resources, have the right teachers that are well-trained, teachers that would support the development, the total development of the children. And also these low-cost private schools, the anyone checking, because there are places where you see that they're just shoving pencils into their hands and saying, write this, write that, write this, write that. But they're not checking to see that the child is developing in other areas. So everyone has a part to play, because I always say the early years is the foundation. Thank God for this topic as well, educational foundation. The early years is the foundation. Whatever skills the children acquire now, it is on it that all other forms of learning will be laid. So it is what they learn now that you start to build on. You just start to extend. But if nothing has been built or nothing solid has been built, it takes the primary teachers a while to now start to mold the child all over again, teach you to read, teach you to write, teach you to hold a pencil. At that point, it even seems like they're in a rush and there's already a gap, because the target is now higher and the child or children are not able to meet up. There are other areas of learning to cover. So it is important that the foundation is solid. I mean, solid, strong.
Fantastic.
Sometimes the child is even going to the year one class and is not able to write, but can read. I've noticed that it's even better, because at the end of the day, if the child has acquired pre-writing skills, by the time the child gets to year one, they are able to build on it. But it's different when the child cannot offer anything, does not have any pre-writing skills, does not have any communication skill, does not have any social, emotional skill. That's like a whole lot of work for the primary. So the foundation is very, very important. I know I've said a whole lot.
Fantastic. Yes, you have. And I think that you emphasize that everyone has to be on the same page. The parents, the teachers, and I dare say the nannies, because some parents have nannies who spend a lot of time with the children. So everybody has to be on the same page. And then aside those that are in the immediate environment of the children, we have the school administrators, we have the lawmakers as well. We all have to work hand in hand to ensure that we are building wholesome children in the country. We have a question here. Somebody doesn't want you to end, though. That's the comments. Okay, we have one question.
Oh my.
And I've experienced this before as well. So most schools admit, the question goes first. Most schools admit children who are not qualified for a particular class because of parents insisting. What do teachers do to support these particular children? My own experience was with the school I was working with admits children based on age. So if you're age 7, you have to be a particular.
Yeah.
And then this boy came into my class at age 7. He could not even read CBC words. So how do we handle cases like that?
Now, it is always important. One thing I say is first week of school is always a good time for teachers to assess. So the first thing you're doing the first week the child comes into your classes, you're assessing, you're checking, what does this child know? What does he need to know? So you have your guidelines of what the children should know before they come into that class, or your checklist. So you have that checklist. Before a child comes into a year one class, you should be able to read short sentences, you should be able to write 1 to 10, can express himself, can form relationships, and things like that. So if the child is coming to your class and is not able to do that, so you spent the first few days observing, now there should be that opportunity for you to communicate to your school leader or your line manager to say, okay, this child in my class is not able to do these things. So we need to maybe have intervention classes for that class. That's one thing that is very important. I know some schools always say, oh, the child cannot do it. Let's have lessons. The child is a lesson teacher. I'm not one of those who recommends to parents to get lesson teachers for their children. It's a decision that if the parents have seen the gap and they decide to take a tutor for their child, that is their decision. However, having a parent get a tutor for their child doesn't mean that the teacher should stop doing what he or she needs to do. So I always say, if your child or your learner is struggling, don't just tell the parents your child is struggling. Your child cannot read, your child cannot write. You also need to let them know what you are doing. So I'm working with your child now. He needs now. That is after reporting as a teacher now. After reporting to your line manager or your school leader, you should be able to invite the parents in for a meeting to say, okay, this is what we have observed. Now, your child of age 7, for instance, cannot even read CVC words. Now, it's going to be a challenge for your child to understand mathematical concepts or to even be able to solve word problems. Because if he cannot read it, then he's not going to understand what the instruction says. He's not going to be able to, there's that gap. So even if you have a teacher wanting to read to the child, it's still going to take a bit of time. So you're basically working with that child just like you would work with a child that has dyslexia. So you should be able to provide a form of support. However, if you take an extra adult, so you need to let the parents know your child is struggling to read. It's going to affect this and these areas of learning because reading is an important skill that would also help other areas. Now, this is what we will do as a school. We will have intervention classes for your child. So if its closing hour is 2 o'clock, the school can decide to say from 2 to 3 p.m. your child is going to have a one-on-one with his or her teacher or a teacher that the school decides, which would be a form of intervention. Now, I know there are some schools decide that parents will pay for intervention. Some schools have it free as part of the tuition. Whatever it is that the school offers, let them be able to provide a form of support for the child. Now, they can also make other recommendations because sometimes you think the child cannot read because he has not been taught, and then when you teach him, the child is still not getting. It might mean that you need to escalate. You need to call in an educational psychologist. Maybe you need to carry out an assessment because it could be a learning disorder. It could be dyslexia. It could be ADHD or ASD or any other one. So at that point, if you've done what you need to do, you provided support in the classroom, you have a particular TA or teaching assistant assigned to supporting the child, and you're doing intervention, and you're still not seeing progress, you need to be communicating with the parents. Okay, at this point now, we need to do something more. Give time first. So first, don't just say, okay, we've done it for 2 weeks. No, you should do it for a longer period of time. And then afterwards, call in an educational psychologist to say, okay, let's do an assessment. Let's carry out an assessment to see what exactly is wrong. If there is a disorder or a disability, then they can go ahead to provide a facilitator or a special educational needs expert who will now be supporting the child. And if there isn't, you also know that you've done it, so you just continue to provide support. So it's left to the parent to now decide to, okay, let's provide a tutor so that what the teacher is doing in school as an intervention, the tutor can also help to support the child's learning. So for some children, they have these gaps because they've not been properly taught. For some children, they didn't have teachers who would be patient enough to help them to learn it as they should, because children have different learning styles. The way I would teach child A using games and puzzles and activities is not the same way I would teach child B. So I need to understand the needs of these learners and offer them support in the way that is suitable. Now, if the teacher is not patient enough to support, or the parent is pushing for a higher class, because we've also seen cases where some children got double promotion, or some children missed a year of school because of movement or family separation. Whatever the case may be, the child may have a reason to not have got to that point where he or she needs to be. Now, it's left the teacher to provide support. It's left to the parent to accept the support the teacher is offering, and provide their own reinforcement at home. However little, I always say that if as a parent you dedicate 10-20 minutes of your time to helping your child reinforce what they learn in school every day, it will make a lot of difference. It doesn't matter how small that time is, it will make a lot of difference because you're helping them to recall what they have learned in school. At some point in my daughter's life, she will come back from school and you will say, what did you learn from school today? She'll say, I learned my ABC. Then tomorrow, what did you learn in school today? I learned my ABC. Then the next day, then at some point I said, no, stop coming to tell me you learned your ABC. At that point, she was like, I think 4. You can't be coming to tell me you learned your ABC. Your teacher sent me what you learned. She said you learned about Nigeria. She said, yes, I did. You learned about it. Then at some point I said, if you don't come back to tell me what you learned in school, you're not going to have your iPad. So we started to attach rewards. And then by the time she realized that, okay, mommy is serious, daddy is serious, I need to reward, then she will come back and tell you, today I learned this, I learned that, and then from there we now carry on with the conversation. Because you're now helping her or him or her to consciously recall what they have learned in school. So they come back and say, oh, today in school I learned addition. I learned to add numbers using my fingers. Fantastic. Today in school, I learned 5 magic words. I learned, okay, what are the 5 magic words? By the time you see that, they see that you are involved. You're asking questions. You're checking homework. Have you done it? Okay, what are the 5 magic words? Tell me again. What did your teacher tell you about this? So by the time she makes a mistake, so 5 magic words, if she says, oh, the 5 magic words are good morning, good afternoon. No, that's not what it is. They see that, okay, even mommy is asking questions. Even daddy is saying no. They are redirecting. Oh, please, excuse me, thank you. That's what you should say. So they see that they are getting that support. So before you know it, the child gets to school the next day, and the teacher is saying, okay, yesterday, who can tell me what we learned? They're already raising their hand because they taught them, they came back home, they shared with you, you redirected areas where they were missing it. It's already like stuck. They get to school the next day, they are able to recall and tell their teacher what it is. So as teachers, support your children to learn what they need to learn. If there's a gap, escalate immediately. Escalate. Tell your school leader. Call the parent for a meeting. Communicate. If there is a need to step the child back, that's another thing. If the child has been rushed from a previous school and there's a need to step the child back, have that meeting with the parents. Let them know these are the struggles, these are the challenges. This is what we have done, because you need to have done something for a whole term or for a whole year. You need to have done and show the record of what you have done as a teacher or as a school. And then let the parent know that, okay, this is what we would recommend, maybe an assessment, or to step your child back because we've done an assessment and there was nothing wrong. You want to step your child back. If he's supposed to be in year 2, we'd like to step him back to year 1 so that he can properly catch up. So make your recommendations, and parents need to listen to teachers' recommendations. I always tell people, if as a parent you go to a doctor and you tell them, okay, my child is coughing, and they do a test, and they tell you, oh, your child has bacterial infection. You won't argue with the doctor and say, no, he does not have bacterial infection, he only has malaria. You have to give him a malaria tablet. Now, if you will not argue a doctor that way, why is it that a teacher will tell you that your child cannot read, your child, this is what we are recommending, say, no, it's a lie, that's not true. Why is it that it's the teacher you're arguing with? That's a professional. So you need to listen to them as much as you might want to maybe speak to your own consultant to check. One of the things I do for parents is I am presently working with one parent whose child is struggling with reading as well. And she called me, said, okay, I would like you to assess my child. This is what the teacher has said. This is what the school has said. This is what they are doing. But she also wanted me to step in to assess the child. And it was way easier. By the time I assessed the child, I was okay, what your teacher has said is actually a bit true, but also give them this feedback that this is what the consultant said. So that way, the parent is also ensuring that she is involved in her child's learning, not just working with the teacher, but also calling a consultant to say, come and assess my child, give me feedback. So from time to time, we're having that conversation. I'm not even teaching the child at this point. All I'm doing is telling her what she needs to do, providing her with resources that she can use to help her child learn by herself. So she's the one who is working with the child together with the school. So it's always important that as parents, we also listen to the teachers, even if we think they are wrong. Talk to someone else who has a lot more information and can appropriately guide and support you and your child.
Whoosh. Like, that's all I have to say now. I'm saying whoosh. Like, I believe that this has been the longest session we've had so far. on the 12 days.
Forgive me.
And I can see that someone even said it earlier. Amazing session. I don't want it to end. And someone else is raising their hand right now to ask. Oh, two people that want to ask questions. Good. But we have to close. Okay, before she takes those questions, we're going to just take those two questions only, and she's going to respond to them shortly. I'd like to encourage teachers who are here, please start by following Early Years Learning NG. Early Years Learning on Instagram. She has a whole lot more to offer to you. Also, kindly follow us on Instagram at Teachers Lounge NG. Currently, there's a giveaway going on, but it seems that teachers don't want reflection journals. I designed reflection journals for teachers, and I'm giving out free journal during these 12 days of Teachmas. To qualify, you should have registered to attend this event, and also you should go on social media to share your key takeaways from each day of Teachmas. And then by the time we're done with the 12 days of Teachmas, for each day, the teacher who spoke comment has the highest likes get a free copy of the reflection journal for teachers. However, please note that you're going to be responsible for shipping fees to your location. The books are in Lagos, Nigeria. So thank you everyone for joining this evening. We're just going to take the two questions from the participants and then we'll call it a night. All right, so I'll start with Chihu. I hope I got that right. Please, if you can unmute the mic and ask your question. Okay, I want to assume that she probably raised her hand by mistake. So let's take Obasheke. Please unmute your mic. Hello? Are you there, Obasheke? Motsunrayo. Okay. I would assume that was a mistake as well. I think that we should call it
I think it might also be network because I know the first person left.
Okay. They're allowed to unmute. Everyone is allowed to unmute.
It might also be network challenge, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Very possible. Oh, okay. Yeah, the first person left. I didn't even notice that at first. Thank you so much, Anuoluwapo, Micheal. Okay, she's back now. Hello, are you there? Do you want to ask your question?
Maybe not.
Sorry,
Maybe
please,
not.
I don't have a question. I'm sorry, I've typed in my question. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hello, ma.
It has been such a delight hosting you this evening. Like I said, this has been one of our longest sessions. You poured out your hearts.
Forgive me. I do this a lot.
I said you came with balanced diet for us.
Absolutely. We need to be well fed.
Yes, so looking forward to hosting you over and over and over again.
I will be glad to come back.
Can we love up on her in the comment section?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
And that brings us to the end of today's day of Teachmas. It's the 6th day of Teachmas. We're going to continue tomorrow again, 8 p.m. time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.